I didn't want to place at the hospital because that's where I worked at. And I knew, and they gave me an option of, okay, we'll just place from home. And I didn't want that either because I'm like, I don't want that memory at home. And so we decided to place at the agency. And so we were planning on doing the placement on Monday. But then things changed a little since she had the jaundice. And so we changed the day to place on Tuesday. And the adoptive couple's caseworker was a little worried about that. Just, she might back out. And I'm like, no, I promise I'm not going to. And I actually said, I will even sign the papers a day early just so you guys feel confident that I am placing with you. Which they said that had never happened before. They usually, you sign the papers and you place, the child. But it just, everything ended up being a blessing. So Monday night I did go and sign the papers, and my mom and dad and my little brother that I'm really close with came, and he and Gracie, obviously was with us, and he just he just snuggled. He's 9 years younger than me, and he just snuggled up to me and just kind of held me while I signed the papers. And I remember looking, crying, of course, but I'm like, this is my worst signature. Like, this doesn't even look like my signature. It was just so hard to place. And I was just so emotional about it. But I think it was a blessing because then the next day that I actually placed her, it just ended up being a happier feeling. I didn't have to worry about the paperwork. I didn't have to do anything with that. And so for my situation, it ended up being really good. So the actual placement day, so Tuesday, again, my brother and, parents were with me, and I told them, I said, I want it to be a max of an hour. I don't want it to just linger on and, then we're like, twiddling our thumbs. And so we were in the room, and they said, the hardest thing, or I had heard from other birth mothers, the hardest thing is to actually set the child in the adoptive mom's arms. So I planned, and I asked the adoptive dad beforehand, I asked him if he would say a prayer in the actual placement, which he did, and it was amazing. And then the actual handing over Gracie, I just felt like I was handing it to a sister. It was way hard, but I was just looking at the adoptive mom, and she's just so light and so excited to have this baby. And I'm like, I know this is what I'm supposed to do. This is where she's supposed to be at. And that was really amazing. We took a few pictures, and probably the hardest part of the placement was then they stayed in the room and we walked down the hall, and I'm like, that's an eternal hall. It just kept walking and walking, and I'm like, my brother was like holding my hand, and I just was like, what's going on? Like, it was just like unreal. And I knew that's what she was, where she's supposed to be, but I'm like, now I'm walking out without this child that I just gave birth to, and that was really hard. But when I got home, my other brothers and sister-in-law had put together a little package with, chocolate and just a bunch of different things that was for me. And they were just up with me like for a few hours, and we didn't really even say a whole lot, just kind of hung out, and that was really good. So, how was your placement?
Ours placement day was rough. We like walked down there and everything, and before the hospital experience, me and the adopted mom went shopping because they have a like ritual routine where they take the birth mom shopping for like the go home hospital outfit, and the birth mom gets to pick the outfit. So we went to Carter's and we're looking around, and I saw this cute little jumpsuit and it said Daddy's little girl, and I was like, that's the outfit. And she's like, are you sure? I was like, that's the outfit. And so we got to the room where you sign the paperwork, and they handed me, before I went in, they handed me the diaper bag and said, this is for after you sign, you can have your time with her. And so I was like, oh, okay, sure. So while I was signing the papers, I was a wreck. I was a wreck going down the stairs.
We were all a wreck.
And my sister, who I'm really close to, she held my hand the whole time that I signed, and my parents were right there, and I had my two sister-in-laws in the room with me, and my parents. My two brothers had to work; they couldn't get it off, but they were there the night before, and so after we signed the papers, she had to be in the NICU because I ran a random high fever. She was fine. They just wanted to make sure she was okay. So we ended up, the head NICU nurse let us stay in one of the empty rooms so we could have our time with her. And we got her dressed in her outfit, and the agency gave us a blanket. So I held her in the blanket for a little bit, and then I had my time with her, and then I wrapped her up in the blanket that I made her and was ready to hand her off to her parents. And I was fine. I stopped crying, and I was fine when the bomb came in, but as soon as I saw the adopted dad, I lost it.
They had a photographer there too, so that kind of broke the ice a little bit, and we were laughing, and they'd pose Lindy with the baby, and then they'd pose the adoptive mother with the baby, and then the two of them together holding this baby, and some very, very special and sweet shots. And then afterwards they framed some of those and gave them to Lindy as a present. And
one of them's actually at the agency.
It was really it was difficult. Placement was difficult, and I think you probably felt that too. My husband was there to sign the papers, but he couldn't stay for the placement. And the night before, we were coming down the elevator, and my husband's not one that ever shows emotion. And I looked over at my husband, and tears were just streaming down his face, and I said, "Oh, you all right?" And he said, "Isn't there some way we could keep her?" And I said, that there isn't. And he said, "I know. I just thought I'd ask, I know." And he could not come to the placement. He is not one that will show emotion in front of people, and he knew that was going to be too hard for him. And so he left and let me and my daughters and my daughters-in-law have that time with her. But I can't think of anything that was tougher on us as a family or harder for Lindy than placement. The actual day of the placement, that was difficult.
We exchanged gifts. They gave me the From My Arms to Your Arms book. Is that what it's called?
From God's Arms to My
From
Arms to Yours.
They gave me that book and a necklace that I'm not wearing. I'm wearing the one she gave me on Mother's Day, but on the necklace, it's on the back of it. It's got pink baby footprints, and then you open it and it says "A Love from My Heart," and it's got her full name in it, and a place for a small picture of her, like a locket. And then she gave me a minky blanket, and Kate has the exact same one, but baby size. And whenever she comes over to my house, that's her blanket. She'll go get it. And it was a good day. Like when we went to leave the hospital, my mom had to go back to work, and so I went with my sister, and we didn't go home. It was a long day. We went to a baseball game at a high school, and then went to Chili's, and then went home. And by then I was like, I need to go to bed. Like, it's been a rough day. I just need to go to bed. And then like my family called me for probably 3 days after that, every day, just making sure I was okay. Like, I wasn't alone. I was at my sister's house.
Yeah. Yeah, that was placement for me. I witnessed one of the greatest acts of love, and that of a birth mother placing your daughter into her hands, and it was amazing. And I remember the distinct feeling of, wow, you are my hero. Because what a great gift, you know. And I knew and I could sense the love you had for your daughter. And it was a tough day. I've never experienced something so difficult and so joyous at the same time. Difficult for you, but awesome and wonderful for that family. And so it was the most intense pain and the most intense joy that I've ever experienced emotionally. And it was a wonderful, difficult thing, but it was the right thing.
We found to a person, there was a feeling in the room that this was correct. This was the right thing. This baby was never ours. This baby was always their baby. And if you would ask each one of them, they said, we felt that same thing. We felt that same thing. Remember?